A farmer and his sons. A farmer had sons who were constantly at odds with each other. Despite his many attempts to advise them to live in harmony, his words had no effect. Realizing that talking wouldn't work, he decided to teach them a lesson through action. He told them to bring him a bundle of sticks. When they did as he asked, he handed them the bundle and said, "Try to break these sticks all at once." The sons tried with all their might, but they couldn't do it. Then the farmer untied the bundle and gave each son a single stick. "Now break them one by one," he said. The sons quickly snapped each stick with ease. The farmer said, "So it is with you, my sons. If you stand united, no enemy can defeat you, but if you fight amongst yourselves, you will be easy to overcome." This story shows that unity is as much stronger as division is easy to defeat. 54. The Farmer's Boy and the Snails. A farmer's boy was roasting snails. When he heard them hissing as they cooked, he said, "What miserable creatures you are! Your homes are burning down, and all you do is sing." This story shows that anything done at the wrong time brings shame upon itself. 55. The Widow and the Maidservants. A hard-working widow had maidservants whom she would wake up when the rooster crowed, even while it was still dark outside, to get them to work. The maidservants, exhausted from their constant labor, decided that the rooster was the source of their troubles, as it woke their mistress in the middle of the night. So they killed the rooster, thinking it would end their suffering. However, once the rooster was gone, their situation only worsened. Without the rooster's crowing to signal the time, their mistress, unaware of the hour, began waking them up even earlier than before. This story shows that sometimes people's plans can end up causing more harm than good. 56. The Witch on Trial. There was a witch who claimed to be able to perform magic ceremonies to avert divine wrath. She often carried out these ceremonies and earned a considerable profit from doing so. Some people, however, accused her of sacrilege. She was arrested, tried, and condemned to death. As she was led to her execution, a bystander mocked her. "You promised to appease divine anger. How could you not even persuade human judgment?" This fable reveals that many boast of grand abilities, yet fail in the simplest tasks. 57. The Old Woman and Her Doctor. An old woman suffering from an eye ailment called a doctor, agreeing to pay him a certain fee if he cured her, but nothing if he failed. The doctor began the treatment, visiting her every day. As he applied the ointment to her eyes, she could not see, and while she was blind, he would take something from her house and leave with it. He did this every day. The woman saw that her possessions were slowly disappearing, and by the time she was cured, there was nothing left. The doctor, now claiming that her sight had been restored, asked for the agreed-upon fee. He called witnesses to testify about their agreement. The woman protested, "I can't see anything. When my eyes were sick, I could see all the things in my house. But now when you say I am cured, I can't see any of them." This fable shows that the wicked often end up inadvertently providing evidence against themselves through their own actions. There was a widow who owned a hen that laid one egg every single day. She thought, if I give her more barley, she might lay 2 eggs a day instead. So she started feeding the hen more generously. But as the hen grew fat and lazy, she stopped laying eggs altogether. This fable shows that greed often leads people to lose what they already have. 59. The Weasel and the File. A weasel went into a blacksmith's workshop. There she found an iron file lying on the bench and began licking it enthusiastically. The file's rough surface scraped her tongue, causing it to bleed profusely. But the weasel was delighted, believing she was actually consuming part of the iron. She kept licking until her tongue was completely destroyed. This fable warns against those who, in their stubbornness, end up harming themselves. Translator's note: this story is similar to one widely shared online as the way Eskimos hunt wolves. Eskimos supposedly coat a sharp blade with blood and freeze it before planting the knife in the snow. Drawn by the scent of blood, a wolf approaches and starts licking the blade. As it licks faster and harder, its tongue gets cut, causing it to bleed. Mistaking its own blood for more prey, the wolf continues licking until it eventually dies from blood loss. Of course, real Eskimos catch wolves using bait and traps like anyone else. Moreover, wolves are intelligent creatures, so it is highly unlikely that such a foolish method would actually work. 60. The Old Man and Death. An old man had cut some wood and was carrying it along a long road. After a while he became exhausted and sat down, setting the load aside. He called out to Death for help. When Death appeared and asked why the old man had called him, the old man replied, "To help me lift this burden." This fable shows that every person, even when they are suffering, still holds on to life. 61. The Farmer and Fortune. A farmer, while ploughing, stumbled upon gold. Every day he would offer thanks to the earth, believing that it was her who had provided him with such a gift. However, Fortune, seeing this, appeared to him and said, "Why do you give credit to the earth for my gift, the wealth I gave you? If the circumstances change and the gold were to end up in other hands, I know you would blame me, Fortune." The fable teaches us that we should recognize our benefactor and show gratitude to them. 62. The Dolphins and the Whales. The dolphins and the whales were fighting each other. As the conflict grew more intense, a crab emerged and tried to mediate between them. One of the dolphins, stepping forward, said to the crab, "But it would be easier for us to be destroyed by each other than for you to make peace between us." This fable shows that some people, who are of little importance, think they can resolve conflicts when they get involved in them. Demades the orator was speaking once in Athens. Since the people were not paying much attention to him, he asked if they would allow him to tell them an Aesop's fable. When they agreed, he began, "Demeter, a swallow, and an eel were walking down the same road. When they reached a river, the swallow flew up, and the eel sank into the water." After saying this, he fell silent. The audience then asked what happened to Demeter. Demades replied, "She is angry with you for having left the important matters of the city and instead holding on to Aesop's fables." Thus, some people are unreasonable, neglecting necessary affairs and preferring things for pleasure. 64. The Man Bitten by the Dog. A man who had just been bitten by a dog was wandering around looking for someone who could heal him. Someone suggested to him, "You should let the blood from your wound drip onto a piece of bread, and then feed the bread to the dog that bit you. If you do that, your wound will heal." The man replied, "But if I do that, every dog in the city will want to bite me." This fable shows that when a person is tempted by evil, their wickedness grows, leading them to commit more injustices. 65. The Two Friends and the Bear. Two friends were travelling along the same road. As they were walking, a bear suddenly appeared in front of them. One of the men, afraid, immediately climbed a tree and hid himself in the branches. The other man, unable to escape, fell to the ground and pretended to be dead. The bear approached and sniffed him, checking his breath and hearing. It is said that a bear will not touch a dead body. After a moment, the bear assumed the man was dead and left him. When the man in the tree climbed down, he asked what the bear had whispered to the man lying on the ground. The other replied, "She told me this. From now on, don't travel with friends who leave you in danger." This story shows that true friends are revealed in times of trouble. 66. Two young boys were sitting with the butcher. While the butcher was busy with his work, one of the boys seized a piece of meat and hid it in the other boy's pocket. When the butcher turned around and started looking for the meat, the boy who had taken it swore to the god that he didn't have it, and the boy who had the meat swore to the god that he hadn't taken it. Realizing the trick they had played, the butcher said, "Even if you deceive me by swearing falsely, you will never deceive the god to whom you swore." The fable shows that even if we manage to deceive others by swearing falsely, we can never deceive the gods. 67. The Travellers and the Axe. Two men were travelling together when one of them spotted an axe. "I found it," he exclaimed. The other man immediately said, "No, don't say I found it. You should say we found it." Soon after, the owners of the lost axe caught up with them and started chasing the man who was holding it. "We're in trouble," the man shouted. But his companion corrected him. "No, you're in trouble, not we. When you found the axe, you said I found it, not we found it." This story shows that those who refuse to share their good fortune will find themselves without support in times of trouble. Two enemies were sailing on the same ship. They wanted to stay as far apart as possible, so one went to the prow and the other to the stern. They remained in their places. Soon a fierce storm came and the ship began to be in danger of sinking. The man at the stern asked the helmsman which part of the ship was most likely to sink first. "It will be the prow," said the helmsman. "Then so be it," said the man. "Death does not trouble me, as long as I will see my enemy die first." This story shows that there are some people who care nothing for their own suffering, as long as they can see their enemies suffer before them. 69. The Two Frogs by the Road. Two frogs lived near each other. One lived in a deep pond, far from the road, while the other lived near the road in a small pool of water. The frog in the deep pond advised the other to move in with him so they could share the pond and live a safer, better life. But the frog by the road refused, saying he had become too accustomed to his home to leave. Not long after, he was crushed by a passing wagon. This is also true for people who stick to worthless pursuits. Before they realize it, they lose everything instead of moving on to something better. 70. The Oak Tree and the Reed. An oak tree and a reed once argued about strength. The oak, proud of its power, boasted that it could resist any wind. The reed, on the other hand, bent easily with every breeze. The reed said nothing in response to the oak's mockery. Then a strong wind began to blow. The reed bent and swayed with the wind, surviving the storm. But the oak, standing firm and resisting the wind, was uprooted and fell. The fable shows that it is better to adapt to stronger forces than to stubbornly resist them. 71. The Coward and the Lion of Gold. A greedy coward found a golden lion and said, "I don't know what to do in this situation. I am beside myself. I can't decide what to do. My love for money and my natural cowardice are tearing me apart. What kind of fate or supernatural force has created a golden lion? My soul is at war with itself. I love the gold, but I fear the lion made of gold. My desire urges me to touch it, but my character tells me to stay away. O fortune, you give me this, but prevent me from taking it. O treasure that offers no pleasure. O gift from the gods that is so unwelcome. What should I do? How can I gain anything from this? How can I approach it? I will send my servants to bring it and order them to attack it en masse, while I watch from a distance." The story fits a rich man who does not dare to touch or use his wealth. 72. The Bees and the Beekeeper. A thief entered a beekeeper's property while the owner was away and stole the honeycombs. When the owner returned and saw that the beehives were empty, he stood there puzzled, wondering what had happened. The bees then came back from their pastures. When they saw the beekeeper, they attacked him fiercely with their stings. The beekeeper said to the bees, "You wretched creatures, you let the man who stole your honeycombs get away with impunity, while you turn your anger on me, the very one who takes care of you." This shows that some people, due to ignorance, fail to guard themselves from their enemies while pushing their friends away, as if those friends were plotting against them. It is common for people to bring Maltese dogs and monkeys on long sea voyages to ease the boredom of the journey. A man planning such a voyage took a monkey with him. When the ship reached Cape Saunion, a promontory near Athens, a violent storm struck. The ship capsized and everyone was thrown into the water. The monkey, too, started swimming. A dolphin, seeing him, mistook him for a human. The dolphin swam underneath the monkey and carried him toward the shore. As they approached the port of Piraeus, the Athenian harbour, the dolphin asked the monkey, "Are you from Athens?" The monkey replied, "Yes, I am, and I come from an illustrious family." The dolphin then asked, "Do you know Piraeus?" The monkey, thinking Piraeus was a person, said, "Yes, Piraeus is a dear and familiar friend of mine." The dolphin, enraged by the monkey's lies, threw him into the water and killed him. This fable is appropriate for a man who lies, thinking he can deceive others. 74. The Stag and his Reflection. A stag parched with thirst came to a spring to drink. As he drank, he saw his reflection in the water. He admired the size and shape of his horns, but despised the slenderness of his legs. While he was thinking this, a lion appeared and began chasing him. The stag, running for his life, quickly outpaced the lion across the flat plains. The speed of a stag lies in its legs, while the strength of a lion lies in its heart. However, when the stag reached a wooded area, His horns got caught in the branches, and he could not run any more. As he was about to be caught, he said to himself, "Wretched me! I was saved by the very thing I despised, and now I am ruined by the thing I prided myself on." Thus, many times in danger, those whom one suspects can become saviours, while those whom one trusts completely may prove to be traitors. 75. The one-eyed deer. A deer, who had lost one of its eyes, used to graze near the sea. To protect itself, it always kept its blind side towards the water, believing there was no danger from that direction. It kept its good eye facing the land, so it could spot any approaching hunters or danger from that side. By doing so, it felt secure and managed to avoid threats on land several times. However, the hunters discovered that the deer was blind in one eye. After a few failed attempts to hunt it, they took a boat and sailed towards the cliff where it was feeding. They approached silently from the sea, an angle the deer had not considered a threat. One of the hunters took aim and shot it. As it lay dying, the deer uttered this lament, "Ah, what a fool I was! I feared the land, yet I found my death from the very place I thought was safe, the sea." The deer and the lion in the cave. A deer, fleeing from hunters, found itself at a cave where a lion lived. It entered, thinking it could hide there, but was caught by the lion and killed. As it was dying, the deer said to itself, "How foolish I was! Fleeing from men, I handed myself over to this wild beast." In the same way, some people, fearing a lesser danger, throw themselves into a greater one. 7. The deer and the vine. A deer, being chased by hunters, hid under a grapevine. When the hunters had passed by, the deer, thinking she was safe, started eating the vine's leaves. As the leaves rustled, the hunters turned back. Realizing that something was hiding under the vine, they threw their spears and killed the deer. As she was dying, the deer said to herself, "I got what I deserved. I shouldn't have harmed the vine that saved me." This fable shows that those who wrong their benefactors are punished by the gods. Some people boarded a ship and set sail. As they reached the open sea, a fierce storm suddenly arose, nearly sinking the ship. One of the passengers, in utter desperation, cried out to his ancestral gods, pleading with tears and groans. He promised to offer generous sacrifices if only they were saved. Eventually, the storm subsided and calm waters returned. Overjoyed by their unexpected survival, the passengers broke into feasting, dancing, and rejoicing. The ship's captain, a man of firm resolve, addressed them sternly. "My friends, it's wise to temper your joy, just as you should not despair too quickly. Another storm may come upon us at any time." This story teaches us not to get carried away by good fortune, as fate is always changeable. The cat and the mice. There were many mice in a certain house. The cat, knowing this, came there and caught one mouse after another, eating them. As the mice were being continuously consumed, they started to hide in the walls. The cat, no longer able to catch them, came up with a plan to lure them out. So, climbing onto a shelf, he hung himself there as if he were dead. When some of the mice saw him, one of them said, "But look, even if this one looks like a sack, I won't approach him." This fable shows that the wise cannot be easily deceived by deceitful appearances. 80. The flies. When honey was spilled in a pantry, some flies flew up and landed on it. They couldn't resist the sweetness of the honey and kept eating. But their feet got stuck in the honey, and they couldn't fly away. As they drowned in the honey, they said, "Oh, pity us. For the sake of a brief feast, we are going to perish." This story shows that greediness often leads to serious trouble. 81. The fox and the monkey elected king. At a meeting of the animals, the monkey performed a dance. The performance was a huge hit, and the animals elected the monkey as their king. But the fox, feeling jealous, spotted some meat lying in a trap. She led the monkey there and said, "Your Majesty, please look. I have discovered a treasure. I didn't take it for myself, of course, as it's only right for the king to claim it. I've been guarding it just for you, so you could enjoy this royal prize." She encouraged the monkey to take it. Without thinking, the monkey put his hand into the trap and got caught. When he accused the fox of setting him up, the fox replied, "Oh, you monkey, how can you rule over the animals when you're such a fool?" This story shows that those who act recklessly often end up in disaster and become the subject of ridicule. 82. The donkey, the rooster, and the lion. Once upon a time, a donkey and a rooster lived together on a farm. One day, a lion, hungry from a long period of fasting, noticed the donkey and thought about attacking him. But when the rooster let out his loud crowing sound, the lion, terrified by the sound, as they say that lions are afraid of a rooster's crow, turned and fled. The donkey, thinking that it was his own strength that caused the lion to run, became filled with confidence. He immediately went after the lion, believing that the rooster had scared it off. However, after the donkey had gone some distance from the farm, the lion turned back and, seeing the donkey now far away from help, ate him. As the donkey was dying, he cried out, "How wretched and foolish I am! I, who was never a warrior, thought I could charge into battle against my enemies. How foolish I was to think I could face danger without understanding the true nature of the situation." This fable shows that many people, seeing their enemies humiliated, become overconfident and attack, only to be destroyed by their enemies in the end. At the assembly of the animals, the monkey stood up and danced. He was greatly admired and applauded by everyone. The camel, feeling jealous, wanted the same success. So she stood up and tried to dance as well. However, she made a complete fool of herself. The other animals, annoyed by her actions, drove her away, beating her with sticks. This fable is suitable for those who, out of jealousy, try to rival their betters. 84. The Two Dung Beetles. A bull was grazing on a small island, and two dung beetles lived there, feeding on the bull's manure. As winter approached, one of the beetles said to the other, "I want to go to the mainland and live there by myself during the winter. If I find a good feeding ground, I will bring something back for you too." The beetle then moved to the mainland and found plenty of moist manure. He settled in and had plenty to eat. When winter was over, he flew back to the island where he had left the other beetle. When the second beetle saw him returning, fat and well fed, he asked why he hadn't kept his promise. The first beetle replied, "Don't blame me. It's just the nature of the place. It's easy to feed there, but the food can't be carried away." This story is fitting for those who offer their friendship only up until they are satisfied, but are of no use to their friends beyond that. 85. The Sheep, the Goat, and the Sow. A man had gathered a sow, a goat, and a sheep from his farm. While they were being transported to the city by a donkey, the goat and the sheep remained calm, but the sow was crying out loudly. The donkey, disturbed by the noise, said to the sow, "Why can't you stay quiet like the others?" The sow responded, "The goat is being taken for her milk, the sheep for his wool, but for me, this is a matter of life and death." This story teaches that each individual has their own reasons for their actions. 86. The Sparrow. A sparrow was feeding on some myrtle berries. The berries were so sweet that the sparrow refused to leave the tree. Meanwhile, a bird catcher who had been observing the sparrow caught her. As the sparrow was about to die, she said, "How miserable I am! I am going to die just for the sweetness of food." This fable shows that some people, out of their desire for pleasure and luxury, put their lives at risk, much like those who are careless with their lives for fleeting enjoyment. 87. The Golden Egg-Laying Hen. A man had a beautiful hen that laid golden eggs every day. Thinking that there might be a treasure hidden inside her, he killed the hen. But when he opened her, he found that she was just like the other hens. In his greed for wealth, he lost the little profit he already had. This fable shows that one should be satisfied with what they have and avoid greed, lest they lose everything. 88. These statues. Hermes, wishing to find out how much people valued him, took on human form and entered a sculptor's workshop. He saw a statue of Zeus and asked how much it would cost. The sculptor replied, "A drachma." Hermes smiled and then asked the price of the statue of Hera. The sculptor named a higher price. When Hermes saw a statue of himself, he thought that, since he was the messenger of the gods and brought profit, people would value him even more. He asked the sculptor about the price of his own statue. The sculptor replied, "If you buy those other two, I'll throw this one in for free." This fable illustrates the case of a conceited person who is not esteemed by others. 89. Hermes and Tiresias. Hermes wanted to test Tiresias's prophetic abilities, so he stole some of Tiresias's cattle from the pasture. Then he assumed a human form and went to the city to visit Tiresias. When Tiresias heard about the stolen cattle, he took Hermes with him, and they went out to look for a sign regarding the theft. Tiresias asked Hermes to tell him about any omen from the birds that he might have noticed. The first sign Hermes saw was an eagle flying from the left to the right, and he reported this to Tiresias. Tiresias said that this was not relevant to the cattle. Next, Hermes saw a crow sitting on a tree. The crow first looked up, then looked down towards the ground. Hermes told Tiresias about this, and Tiresias responded, "Yes, that crow is swearing by both heaven and earth that I could recover my cattle if you are willing to cooperate." This fable can be used for a man who is a thief. Note, Tiresias is an important prophet in Greek mythology, appearing in the myths of Zeus and Hera. Originally a man, he once witnessed two snakes fighting, and after intervening was transformed into a woman. Later, he experienced a return to his original male form. This dual experience of both male and female perspectives endowed him with exceptional prophetic abilities. Tiresias appears as a key prophet in many myths, and he is notably mentioned in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. 90. The Viper and the Water Snake. A viper used to go to a certain spring to drink, but a water snake that lived there drove him away, angry that the viper was encroaching on his territory. Their dispute grew fiercer, and eventually they agreed to settle it by a fight, with the winner taking control of both the water and the land. The frogs, who despised the water snake, approached the viper, offering to be his allies and aid him during the battle. When the fight began and the viper grappled with the water snake, the frogs did nothing but croak, as they were unable to help in any way. In the end, the viper emerged victorious. He was furious with the frogs for failing to help him as promised, and even worse, for merely sitting there singing while he fought. The frogs replied, "But you should have known that we had nothing to offer you except the sound of our voices." This fable shows that when you need real help, mere words are of no use. The Donkey and the Dog. A certain man kept a donkey and a beautiful dog. The donkey, in the stable by the manger, ate barley and grass as usual, but the dog, being charming, played joyfully around the master, always fawning over him. The master treated the dog well, and the donkey watched all this, thinking to himself, "If my master and all the servants love this nasty little dog so much, then surely I can do the same things it does. After all, I am better than a dog. I'm more talented and useful in so many ways. I deserve to drink fresh water and eat elegant food just like that dog. I'm much more deserving of respect than this little creature." One day, while the donkey was reflecting on this, he saw his master approaching. The donkey brayed loudly and rushed to meet him. He leapt up, placed his front feet on the master's shoulders, licked him with his tongue, and tore at the master's clothes with his hooves. The master fell down under the donkey's weight. At his shout, all the servants came running. They grabbed sticks and stones and beat the donkey senseless, breaking his legs and back. They finally chased him into the stable, where he lay barely alive. Unworthy people should not try to usurp the position of their superiors. 2 dogs. A man had 2 dogs. He taught one to hunt and the other to guard the house. Whenever the hunting dog caught something, the watchdog would also share in the reward. This made the hunting dog angry, as he had to work for everything, while the watchdog did nothing and still enjoyed the fruits of his labor. The watchdog responded, "Don't blame me. Blame the master who never taught me to work. Instead, he taught me to live off the labor of others." This fable shows that even young people who don't know how to do anything should not be blamed, as they have been raised in such a way by their parents. 93. The Viper and the File. A viper entered a blacksmith's workshop and bit a file, trying to see if it could gnaw through it. The file responded, "You fool! Why are you trying to wound me with your teeth when I am capable of grinding through any kind of iron?" This fable shows that those who expect to gain something from people who are known to be greedy are wasting their time. 94. The Mother and her 2 daughters. A woman who had 2 daughters married them both off, one to a gardener and the other to a potter. One day, she went to visit the daughter married to the gardener. After a general conversation, she asked her how things were going. The daughter replied, Everything else is fine, Mother, but please pray for rain, so the vegetables will get enough water and grow properly. Afterward, the mother left and went to see the daughter living with the potter. She asked the same question, and the daughter answered, "Everything else is fine, Mother, but please pray for clear skies and hot sunny days, so the pots will dry faster." The mother then said, "If you want clear skies, and your sister is asking for rain, how am I supposed to pray for both of you?" This story shows that people who are attempting to do two opposite things will fail at both. 95. The ill-tempered wife. A man had a wife who treated everyone in their household badly. He wanted to know if she behaved the same way toward the members of her father's household, so he found a reasonable excuse and sent her to her father's house. After a few days, she returned, and he asked her how things had gone. She said, "The cowherds and shepherds were giving me nasty looks." The man replied, "My wife, if even those who leave at dawn with their herds and return only late at night dislike you, what do you expect from those who spend the entire day with you?" The fable shows that great things can be understood from small signs, and hidden truths can be seen through what is visible. 96. The snake and the fox. A snake was lying on a fence made of thorn bushes near a vineyard by the river. When heavy rains caused the river to swell, the fence was swept away. The snake, tangled up in the thorns, was carried along by the current. A fox, seeing this, burst out laughing and said, "A terrible ship, but fitting for its sailor, and the sailor is just as fitting for his ship." This shows that wicked people, by joining forces with other wicked ones, meet their ruin together. The wolf. A kid had wandered away from the flock and was being chased by a wolf. When the kid could no longer escape, it turned to the wolf and said, "I know I am about to become your meal, but please let me die with some dignity. Play the flute for me so that I can dance." The wolf played the flute, and the kid danced to the music. The sound of the music was heard by the shepherd's dogs, who came running and attacked the wolf. As the wolf ran away, he muttered to himself, "I deserve this. I should have been a butcher, not a musician." The story shows that even the wicked can be humbled by the power of words. 98. The Kid and the Wolf. A young goat stood on the roof of a house. When he saw a wolf passing by, he began hurling insults and mocking him. The wolf, grinding his teeth, said, "You there! It's not you who are mocking me, but the place where you're standing." This fable shows that often it is a person's position or timing that gives them the courage to challenge those who are stronger. 99. The Man and the Statue of Hermes. A certain man carved a wooden Hermes and took it to the market to sell. However, since no one approached him, he began calling out to passers-by. He shouted as if offering a beneficent god who bestows benefits and generously grants profit. Then one of those present said to him, "Oh, you, why do you sell such a thing when you should be enjoying its benefits yourself?" He replied, "I need immediate benefits, but this god is accustomed to dispensing profits slowly." This saying is apt for a man who is shamefully greedy and even holds the gods in contempt. Zeus, Prometheus, Athena, and Momus. Zeus, Prometheus, and Athena were once competing to see who could create the best thing. Zeus made a bull, Prometheus made man, and Athena made a house. They chose Momus to be the judge. Momus, who was always quick to criticize, began by complaining about each creation. He told Zeus that he had made a mistake because the bull didn't have eyes under its horns to see where it was charging. Then he criticized Prometheus, saying that man should have had a transparent forehead so others could see his thoughts, especially the wicked ones. Finally, he criticized Athena's house, arguing that it should have had wheels at its base so it could be moved easily if the neighbors were troublesome. Zeus, annoyed by Momus's constant complaints, cast him out of Olympus for his spiteful behavior. This story shows that nothing is truly perfect, and there will always be someone who finds fault with everything. Note, Momus is the god of criticism and mockery in Greek mythology, personifying the act of maliciously criticizing and ridiculing others. He is the son of Nyx, the goddess of night, and has siblings such as Moros, fate, Thanatos, death, Apate, deception, Eris, discord, among others. Momus's excessive criticism and mockery made him so disliked by the other gods that he was eventually expelled from Mount Olympus.